Hey everybody, it's Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Welcome to the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast, where we're open to the franchise tag. It's me, your man, MG Marcus Grant, joined by Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. Happy Tuesday, fellas.
Yeah.
Laquan, you gotta be, look, I know we're gonna get into this. You have to be feeling pretty good about how your football weekend went.
It's quiet. It's a quiet timeline now of the same annoying thing going on and on and on. So we are in good spirits today.
All right, that's good. That's good. Florio, not much happening with the Bills. I would imagine are you all Mets out?
Shirt, though.
You're Mets focused right now, I would think, right?
Yeah, right now, I love the Bills, but right now it's Mets and Knicks that have my attention. So
yes.
the Knicks playing, look, I know everyone wants to poo-poo them, but this is their best season in 2 decades. And the Mets have Juan Soto, and he wants to be a Met. So I know we were talking before about all the players the Dodgers have, and it's going to be a very fun year for you guys, but I'm happy with just Juan Soto.
Yeah, I mean, look, Juan Soto is worth a lot. So, yeah, I'd be happy with Juan Soto, too.
$750 million.
The Knicks are 40-20. They're in the 3rd spot in the East.
No, that's good, man.
Yeah, no, that's legit.
I have a Knicks fan friend who hates them. He's like, they're not going to win anything this year. And I'm like, dude, they're double the amount of wins and loss. Like, enjoy it. That's what sports are for,
dude. Jeez.
Yeah.
Dude, rings culture has ruined all of us, man. It is the worst. It is the worst. We got a lot to go through on this show today. A lot has happened since the last time we talked to all of you. We will talk some free agency because we are about a week away from the open negotiating period for free agency. And we'll do a quick wrap up of the combine, which happened this past week in Indianapolis, which, by the way, I mean, talk about this negotiating period. I know it's supposed to open officially next week. If you don't think some of that went on in Indianapolis last week, I would like to sell you some beachfront property in Scottsdale. So
no one would ever do that, Marcus.
I know, right? Nobody would ever do that. Let's dive in with some news because there has been a lot of news happening. In fact, there were things that I sort of left out just for fear of this thing getting way too long and out of control. The first one, at least the one most recent, is the Bengals have said they will apply the franchise tag to T. Higgins for a 2nd straight year. And the two sides will try and work out a longer term deal. I believe they have until mid-July to actually come to an agreement on something. So they do have a little bit of time to try to work some things out. But in the meantime, Florio, means the band is back together in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow's there. Jamar Chase is there. T. Higgins is coming back as well. Not to mention that it's just one big free agent wide receiver piece off the board. So now that we know this, how early are you drafting T. Higgins? Can he creep into the 2nd round?
Well, first, how much help does Joe Burrow need? I just wanted to give him a hard time to him, but I probably am not taking T. Higgins in the 2nd round. And I was a little shocked to see that in early rankings on Fantasy Pros, he's wide receiver 13. Like, he's going ahead of Ladd McConkey. I wouldn't do that. I understand how good he was when he played this year, but he is someone that you kind of got to expect to miss some time. That's just kind of who he's been. And prior to this year, he was always good to be like a solid wide receiver 2, like somewhere in that like wide receiver 18 to 24 range. So that's where I'm more comfortable taking him. Like, if he fell to the 3rd round, like probably mid to late 3rd round, I'd be in at that price. But I feel like this year, look, everything went right for the Bengals offensively. I know they didn't make the playoffs, but like Burrow went off, Chase went off, Higgins was going off when he was out there. But we've seen numerous seasons prior to this where like they don't get the high end results. So I don't want to chase last year and pay up and be like, this is a guarantee that they're going to go off like this again, because it's in the range of outcomes, but so is them doing what they've done in past years together. I think a lot of it comes down to their defense. Like, what is their defense going to force them to have to try to throw the ball 50 times a game like they kind of were having to do this past season? Or is it going to be a little bit better and they're be able to run the ball more and stuff like that? So I like T. Higgins. I thought he was a value this year. But next year, it feels like you're going to be paying up for his ceiling.
I mean, LQ, in the mock draft we did a couple weeks ago, you got T. Higgins 4th pick in the 3rd round, 1 pick right after Ladd McConkey. Do you think that price stays there?
That price should stay there. It's probably not. And I do like T. Higgins in the third round rather than the second round because, again, you have to have that expectation he's going to miss games. It's been a while since he's had a full season, but he's not satisfied. He's not paid yet, so I don't think he's going to be, that happy-go-lucky $100 million, wide receiver out there. I think he's going to put his head down, continue on grinding, and kind of just protect himself in the sense of, like, this franchise tag, it could hurt him the following season. Say he gets hurt this season. He's not going to cash in as big as he could have been, even though he missed some games this past year. So hopefully they get a deal done. There's a way that they can get Jamar Chase satisfied to be the biggest paid wide receiver. Then there's a way that they can mess with the cap and get T. Higgins signed as well. But you will probably have to let go of your lead sacker in Henderson. So it's like, I really feel like, Hendrickson, I should say. I feel as though like your defense is going to be bad with him or without him. So move the guy on defense, get T. Higgins paid and locked up so we can have this shot back at the Super Bowl. And I think that, the Bengals have the best opportunity with T. Higgins on their team, and fantasy managers had the best opportunity to get back to the big dance themselves if T. Higgins is locked in and happy and paid.
The three of us are going to be playing defense for the Bengals next year.
I call linebacker. I don't want to be in the trenches.
I'll brush up on my back pedal and that sort of thing. To your point, though, Higgins has played just 12 games in each of the past 2 seasons. So injuries have been an issue for him the last couple of years. Has not hit 1,000 yards since 2022, but the 10 touchdowns go a long way toward making you fantasy relevant, sort of as he was last year.
But as you always say, Marcus, fickle beasts.
Touchdowns are fickle beasts. They are. Although I'll say this. He's never had fewer than 5 in a season. So in that respect, he seems to be fairly consistent. But yeah, 10, that's asking a lot to do in back-to-back seasons.
Not a second round pick, though. Like that's wow. That's kind of expensive. Like you're going to be missing out on some good guys.
If he's going ahead of Terry McLaurin, I'd rather Terry personally.
No.
So speaking of wide receivers and speaking of Terry McLaurin, I'm going to do this out of order from what it is on the sheet. The 49ers have traded Deebo Samuel to the Washington Commanders for a 5th round pick. Now, full disclosure, I was visiting some friends in Arizona, went to a Cactus League baseball game. But we were at the bar having some adult beverages when the news broke, and I was surrounded by several 49er fans. Not a total surprise. I mean, the chatter had been happening for a couple of days that Washington was heavily involved and very, very interested. I think for a lot of 49er fans, the general response has been, hey, look, Deebo gave us some very good years. We appreciate your contributions to the franchise, and we wish you well in DC. I think it's, I think a lot of 49er fans sort of understood that the clock had sort of run out on Deebo with the franchise. I don't think anybody's upset. They appreciate everything he did. And very curious to see what he does in Washington. Speaking of the Commanders, though, Laquan, when you look at this offense now, Jaden Daniels, obviously a stud in his rookie year. We know what Terry McLaurin can be, but I think we've all said on this show, too, that he needed a little bit of help. He needed somebody to kind of take the pressure off of him on the other side. What does this mean now, having Tyshun Samuel in Washington?
Well, it means a couple things. One, you get help for Terry McLaurin. Like, this is great news for Terry. I mean, you have a decoy and you have a wide receiver, too, that can draw enough attention for Terry to go out there and still be Terry McLaurin that we've known and love. More so looking at Deebo himself as a fantasy asset, I could see him as like a low-end wide receiver, 2, maybe a wide receiver 3. He'll need the best off-season type of workout video for me to be bought into him, to be motivated, and conditioning is back on par, because he was looking kind of thick at that Super Bowl with that Eagles jersey on. So I don't know if we get that explosiveness out of Deebo again. No, I really feel like you said the time is out, man. That's why I think the 49ers were okay to move on, even though his yards after the catch per reception were up there, 8.3 yards. It's fine, but it's more so of like, we want Deebo, who was exploding for those 12 extra yards, exploding out of that backfield as a running back. We haven't seen that in a very long time. So I don't know if that happens in Cliff Kingsbury's system as well, because we have yet to see him coexist 2 wide receivers other than a decoy, Andy Isabella being the guy that takes the attention off of the main guy. So until Cliff Kingsbury gets a little bit more creative with 2 wide receivers, that's when, I'll buy into the Deebo hype train.
All right, man. Look, I get it. Debo is not where he was. Let's not put him with Andy Isabella. Let's not.
Oh, wow. Hey, he might
let's
be.
not, let's
Cliff
not do
Kingsbury
that.
might look at him and be like, "You look familiar, man."
I know he's not the same dude he was 2-3 years ago. I would still take him over Andy Isabella any day of the week.
Kingsbury saw him up close and personal twice a year too.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true. So right now I'm looking at Fantasy Pros. Debo is the wide receiver 37 at this point. I'm trying to see where he went in our mock draft a couple weeks ago. But I mean, Floor, I've said this plenty of times. Debo is that guy who in San Francisco, aside from the one huge year he had, always better in real football than he was in fantasy football because he was so volatile. Does it feel like the rest of the fantasy world has sort of caught up to that?
Yeah. I think everyone, because we had that one crazy season, like you said, and like half his production came as a running back then. And I gave him so much credit that year because it literally felt like he was just sacrificing his body on a weekly basis. The entire team on offense ran through Debo Samuel, but we really haven't had that since. And a lot to Laquan's point, I'm excited for this move, but not really for Debo, but more for what it means for the pieces that I was already excited about. Say what you will about Debo, I do think he's an upgrade over Noah Brown and Diami Brown. You now have someone that defenses at least need to respect. Plus, he's a better yak guy than even Terry McLaurin, any weapon Jaden had last year. So that's another new weapon where one thing I noticed with Jaden too is people were saying at times he held the ball a little bit look, I think he played flawlessly as a rookie, but people were yeah, he missed some guys in the flat or whatever. I think this year when you have someone like Debo and hey, I could just dump this off right here and he's going to take this 8 yards, 10 yards, get me a first or close to it. That's going to slowly but surely add up for his passing yards. But even more so, you have to worry about Jaden running. You have to worry about the backfield combo right now of Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. And now you have to worry about Debo getting involved as a runner or short catch and run. Teams are going to have to load up near the line of scrimmage more, which is going to create a lot more opportunities for Terry McLaurin to win downfield, I think, which is why when this trade happened, I was I could see people maybe dinging Terry, not much, just a little bit, being oh, there's more target comp or whatever. But I think this is a good thing, and I'm still firmly all in on that Jaden Terry stack.
Jaden Daniels already kind of the consensus QB3. There's no chance either people he's not getting up to 2, right? 3 is...
No.
Would you say Jaden ahead of Lamar Jackson is what I'm asking you?
Or Josh.
Or Josh Allen. Or, yeah.
No, not Josh. Josh to me,
wait. You were taking over Lamar?
You kind of paused about Lamar. Let's you sort of.
No. Don't get this all messed up. I'm just thinking if I wouldn't be as upset if the pick right before me was Lamar, I'd be all right, Jaden, cool. Or if it was Jaden right before me, I'll take Lamar. It wouldn't be such a fuss, Okay. That's how I'm trying to explain it.
All right.
But so Josh is your QB1? That's what I'm taking away from this.
Yes. In a sense, yeah. It's more so of a lock. The joy of Florio's face right now.
Because I when we did our rankings, you had Lamar 1, right?
Yeah, but those are interchangeable to me, man. Whatever you want it to look like on paper.
Completely agree. You told me Lamar 1, I'm not going to be oh my God, you're crazy.
Yeah, I'm not going to it is what it is.
I'll take whichever one goes last.
Yeah, exactly. Whichever one's still there, that's the one I'll take and be happy with it. On the flip side, though, obviously no more Debo in San Francisco. The Niners reportedly are open to trading Brandon Ayuk as well. I don't the very excellent Victoria Zeller. You can find her on Blue Sky. Does a lot of great football stuff. I thought her tweet about it was the best of the all right, man, either do this or don't. But stop making it our problem. We went through a whole offseason of Brandon Ayuk might get traded and him FaceTiming with Jaden Daniels and all this kind of stuff. If you're just either do this or don't, but just stop involving us.
I did love the NFL being Jaden went to a 49ers game or camp last summer. It was well, he wasn't there for Debo. Let's just be honest. He was there for Brandon Ayuk.
But okay, let's just game this out, right? We know Debo's gone. Let's just say they finally move on from Brandon Ayuk. I mean, Florida, what does this mean? I mean, look, they're all in on trying to re-sign Brock Purdy to a deal. We saw Ricky Pearsall at times. We saw Juwan Jennings have some really big games. I mean, what does this mean for the Niners? I mean, it feels like everybody takes a step backwards, though, right?
I'm worried about Debo taking a step. Purdy taking a step back if both Debo and Ayuk are gone, because last year with those guys out, like Purdy wasn't the same guy that he was, at least fantasy wise, that he was 2 years ago, and he had a lot of games with less than 2 passing touchdowns, which he was like super consistent with the year prior. So I do think it has a big effect on Brock Purdy. But I'll say this, like, Juwan Jennings will get hyped up, but Ricky Pearsall is one that I'm really excited for. And I don't think I'm the only one on this show, but he is like, I think all three of us agreed at the draft last year was like year one is just kind of for him to get acclimated. Year two is when Kyle Shanahan is going to have a lot of fun with this guy. He can play in the slot. He could play out wide. He could win after the catch. He could win downfield. There's really nothing Pearsall can't do on a football field. He's also the only it was like 0.2 of his snaps, but he was the only other wide receiver other than Deebo Samuel to take any snap out of the backfield last year. So maybe that's something he can have in his game. And let's not forget, he was shot in August.
So he was shot last year. Yes.
Like, yes. You got to imagine, like, he's going to be much better in year two. So I think Juwan Jennings might be the one that gets hyped a little bit more, but Pearsall is really the one I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying like he, took a rookie year to get acclimated. I was hoping you were going to mention the part where he also got shot. Because there's definitely something to come back from. Just a little bit of something. I'm curious to see. I'm with you on Pearsall. I think he's going to be the guy that everybody wants in this offense, at least wide receiver wise. I'm curious to see what Juwan Jennings' price is.
They're definitely drafting a wide receiver, so that's why I think they're open to restart, because I think it's going to be gold, whatever wide receiver they land in this draft, being that it's deep, quote and unquote. But I feel as though anybody that gets into Kyle Shanahan's offense, they're going to be able to produce. So if they're open for Ayuk to get out of the way so they can open up some cap for Brock, I would be on for it. Do it. Because you got some good pieces there.
I'm sure you would be.
I'm so not lying. I'm dead serious.
As of this moment, Juwan Jennings, by the way, is still wide receiver 49. I'm right now, right? I'm curious to see, give it a week or two and sort of see how things play out. Ricky Pearsall is wide receiver 53. Both of those are going to go up.
Yeah.
If they trade Ayuk, can you please send him to the Patriots? That's my one request.
That's what I thought about you when I saw the T. Higgins franchise tag thing. Because I know that you were sort of hoping that maybe he goes to New England as well. By the way, I just see some breaking news.
No way.
Coming through. This per Adam Schefter. I don't know if I can say that out loud. I just did. The New York Jets are releasing Davante Adams. So,
that was obvious.
Yeah, I know that was sort of the talk, that if they couldn't figure out a trade for him, that they were going to release him. It appears they could not find a trade partner. So
I love when NFL teams say this. Listen, if we can't trade the guy that if we trade him for you, you're going to have to pay him $40 million. We're just going to release him and you could sign him for whatever you want. What is the purpose?
Oh,
what do I do?
Okay.
It's negotiating 101.
Right. So there you go. Davante Adams is going to be a free agent. So another wide receiver name to throw out there. We'll talk wide receivers in free agency.
Tom Pelissero has it too, so we can say that.
There's Tom Pelissero reporting that Davante Adams is going to be released.
Marcus, you got to be safe, Jets. Man. I know you might get a Starbucks or something like that.
Hey, I was about to say, you might get a Starbucks, bro.
I'm a coffee bean guy, so it's fine. We're all good.
Oh, okay. You're safe.
The other big thing for this past weekend, the Rams and Matthew Stafford have agreed on a new contract. I don't know that anybody really truly believed that Matthew Stafford was leaving. Right?
Oh, have you been on Twitter?
No, actually, I honestly actually have not.
Good man, because I was screaming in silence of just what are you guys talking about? You guys are serious. You guys are reporting this as this is a real thing. No. Sean McVay would never.
It's one of my favorite things in sports where the fans of the team are the worst thing is going to happen. And every other fan of another team is like, he's going to end up there. Just make it happen already.
See, I'm not a delusional Rams fan. I'm so realistic. Like I came on the same podcast telling you to never draft Tyler Higbee in fantasy. Get rid of Cam Akers. I'm telling you the truth that, okay, Cooper Kupp is at his end. We need to move on because this draft, they have some wide receivers that can plug and play and get us back to the big dance.
Did you hear McVay's quotes on Kupp where he was like,
I'm never going to say never. He will never speak in absolutes. That is the man of the culture, man. And McVay, we trust. Like, I'm so serious at this. But this whole Stafford thing just blown out of proportion. It's like, I want to get paid what I deserve. Okay, we get that. We don't have money. Can you wait until we move things around? Yes and no. But I'm going to go see what the market's going to give me. Yeah. But there was nowhere he was going to go. Nowhere.
There really was nowhere legitimately that he could have gone where he would have been as successful, where he could have been as successful as he would be with the Rams.
So angry.
I do think, 90% of the football population was like, he's going to be in LA next year.
Oh my God.
And so here it is. That's done. So look, understanding what Matthew Stafford brings to the football field and to the actual team versus what he brings in fantasy, I'll let Laquan, cool off a little bit before I ask him anything. So, Florio, is Matthew Stafford still a top 15 fantasy quarterback?
I think he'll finish top 15. I'm not sure he gets drafted as top 15 because, us fantasy players are suckers for upside. So, he could easily finish over, my boy Drake May or I know, Laquan, you love Bo Nix and we all like Caleb, these young guys. Even Anthony Richardson right now is ranked ahead of him on Fantasy Pros, but that's chasing upside. To me, what I think, if you want Matthew Stafford, you should pair him with one of those other upside quarterbacks because Stafford, as great as he is, he doesn't bring that super high ceiling on a weekly basis. What he is more of is a very steady floor. So you know what you're going to get out of him. You don't really have to worry. So you can kind of set that with someone like a May or a Williams, or if you want to do the Richardson thing again, pick your favorite upside quarterback. Then you kind of cover your bases because you have someone that if they hit, they'll become your weekly starter and maybe have the upside to be top 10, if not higher. And if all else fails, you have a very safe and reliable Matthew Stafford that is going to put up. Look, you don't want to start on the first month of the season. Laquan could kind of speak about the slow starts they've been having. But after that, you're going to have a rock solid quarterback.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's pretty fair there. So, Laquan, does this cement Puka as the 1.01 for you?
We are back, baby. Yes, it does. It's in stone. I'm starting to see others fall along, understanding he could be a Triple Crown winner this year, man.
Wait, others haven't won?
Others are starting to creep on the fantasy streets of saying that they got him at 1, which is fine. And I feel as though now there's more reality that this Triple Crown is on the table for him. As long as he stays healthy, we're looking at Puka that could beat man coverage. He could beat zone coverage. He is hard to bring down, the yak monster. You have an elite IQ and a quarterback, a Hall of Famer, one of the best number 1 picks in the last 15 years. You're looking at Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua being set up on a platter of this is going to be fantasy gold. So I'm going to be stomping for the rest of this draft season, rest of the summer, that Puka's 101. It's just what it is.
I would like to see them get a little bit of help for Puka. I mean, because at least, when Cooper Kupp had his Triple Crown season, there were options. There were other options out there for Stafford to throw the football to. I mean, look, I think you just need somebody to take some attention off, right? I mean, they had Robert Wood. I know it wasn't the best Robert Woods season the year he did that because he was hurt, but they also brought in Odell, midway through that season.
Which looked good. I just wish we had the whole collective of Odell and Cooper Kupp.
Odell was actually starting to come to life. Unfortunately, he got hurt in the Super Bowl, which was frustrating.
He was going to be the MVP of that game, I think.
The way the game was going, he absolutely would have been. I would just like to see somebody else come in there just to take some pressure off. I'm not sure that DeMarcus Robinson, as much as your son seems to think he and I are the same person, I just don't think he's going to be that guy next year. So
I kind of cleared that up these
last
couple days.
All right. Very good. Very good. Last little bit of news here. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but Raheem Morris says he wants to see, quote, the best version of Kyle Pitts in 2025.
I laughed when I saw this.
Yay or nay, are y'all back in on Kyle Pitts?
No. Not at all. And
Like we just lost Florio for a second.
Quick.
Like did he just rage quit the podcast? Like all of a sudden, like his camera went off and he just went away. Like I don't know what happened.
If he did this, oh my god, this is the greatest.
I hope
thing
it was
ever.
a technical. I actually hope it was not a technical glitch, and he really just rage quit the podcast just because of this. But you were saying you're not going back in on Kyle Pitts.
No, man. I saw this and I kind of laughed because I'm like, wow, this seems like the same report that we saw. Oh, he's back. Did you rage quit?
Did you rage quit the podcast after that?
I think my wires sensed the rage in me and it was like, I'm going to disconnect because I'm like, welcome to the club, Raheem Morris. We've all wanted the best version of Kyle Pitts for 4 years now.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
So are you officially? I mean, I know last year you let go of the rope. Are you still out, or is it like an ADP thing? Like, where are you right now on this?
So I expected to be out. Like I went on Fantasy Live last year and was like, look, at the end of each season I've been like, I'm not quitting Kyle Pitts, but this year was very different. But his ranking on Fantasy Pros right now is tight end 16.
16.
And I've been telling you I'm kind of at the point where if I don't get one of the top tight ends, I'm just gonna punt. He is a perfect punt position. Grab him and another upside tight end or whatever, and hope one hits. Like. I'm going to get sucked back in at this cost. I know it.
I know.
Oh you're a sick man.
My thought was like, yeah, no, I can't do this, Raheem Morris. I can't do it. And like, I just looked at like the ADP. I'm like, I feel like there's going to be at least
top 10. I'm out.
Yeah. Tight end 16.
He's going behind Hunter Henry right now.
Look, I feel like Kyle Pitts is like that one show that started off with a bang. Like, it's just so good and you're hooked. And then the second season, it was like disappointing, but you're like, whatever. And season 3 buys you back in, Mike. This is you. This is where you're at. Season 3, it buys you back in because you're chasing that. I got the perfect show for you. You're chasing season 1 hype and you're like, oh, I'm so bought back in. And then it gets weirder. And then
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Is this another Jersey Shore reference that we're making?
No.
I thought 100% it was Jersey Shore.
Are we doing another Jersey Shore thing right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, Jersey Shore. But another show could be compared to it, like the show You on Netflix, because I just watched
okay. I like You.
But they're advertising for season 5. I am not buying in. This is Kyle Pitts. I am not buying into season 5 the You show. Like, it's not happening.
I think all Netflix shows are like Kyle Pitts because they go so hard season 1 that season 2 they're like, what? And like it never lives up to the hype.
Man. Wow.
But yes, you could put Jersey Shore into that scenario.
Wow. We just called Kyle Pitts a Netflix show. All right. All right. I feel like maybe we'll argue about Kyle. I don't say argue, but we may discuss Kyle Pitts again at some point this offseason as well.
Probably.
We are a little bit more than a week away from the official start of the new league year. That hits on March 12th. So do a little bit of a free agency preview. Last week on the show, we talked about some teams individually, teams that had money to spend, teams that didn't, teams we would like to see be aggressive, but I felt like now we should just kind of go position by position, put QBs and tight ends together because, not either one of them is super, super deep. So let's start at quarterbacks, though, because that's maybe the most intriguing one. Best team fits 4 is sort of my question here. And let's just start with Sam Darnold, because the Vikings say they are not really interested in franchise tagging him, but they do seem interested in maybe bringing him back. So, Laquan, I'll start with you. Best fit, is it staying in Minnesota? Is it maybe going somewhere else for Sam Darnold?
I think everybody wants him back in Minnesota, but honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him with the Raiders. And I feel like, the Raiders could be a nice fit for him, being that he won't have to do much. And I think more so, he credits a lot of his, QB play being improved with Kyle Shanahan, and Brock Purdy and stuff. And then obviously getting with Kevin O'Connell, he was able to elevate that. I think he goes to the Raiders with Pete Carroll, where you're going to most likely be in a run-first offense. You won't have to be that superhero, quarterback that he was last season and kind of fell on his face at the end. But I just feel so the Raiders, you have a semi-mobile guy because Darnold can get out of that pocket and move as well. So I think if they miss on, any other quarterback that's in free agency, I think Sam Darnold could make a place there and, be good for the Raiders.
You agreed, disagreed, Flora? You had another option, perhaps?
I think the best one for him would be the Vikings, but that's starting to feel unrealistic. So full circle, Jets, Jets, baby.
Wow.
That's because I have a different quarterback I want to see in Vegas. So if that happens, then Sam Darnold's got to go somewhere else. And the Jets just feel like the spot, man.
Oh, I think it's the Jets. I mean, if he's still interested in being a starter, I think it's the Jets, or I could see him going to the Giants. And sort of maybe pairing up with Malik Neighbors and seeing what they can do there. I just don't think he's going to start in Minnesota. It sounds like the Vikings are, I'm not going to say all in on J.J. McCarthy, but they really do want to see what they have with McCarthy. And I think even if Darnold comes back, I think there will be a competition, but I think it's going to be one that's sort of weighted toward J.J. McCarthy getting the starting job. So, I was going to say the Giants. I think that's an interesting landing spot for him a little bit. I know, Florio, how you feel about Brian Daboll. Maybe he can figure out how to get something out of Darnold or sort of, I guess, continue building upon what we saw last year with Sam Darnold. So, I think that's interesting. Jets would be funny just for the pure comedy aspect of it, for sure. I'm assuming the guy you're talking about going to Las Vegas, Michael F. Florio, is Justin Fields. Correct?
Yeah, he just feels to me, and I have tweets going back to this time last year where I'm like, Justin Fields just feels born to be a Raider. Like I've just always have had that feeling. I don't know why. He would look really good in the black and silver, but I think with Pete Carroll and everything, they want, like Laquan was saying, a run first system. Like Justin Fields helps you with that because he is a run first system. Like he himself could give you 1,000 rushing yards. We've already seen that at the NFL level, and we've seen that he can help the running back in the rushing attack as well. And we've also seen that he could get the ball to a tight end, which is what your number one priority is as a passer in Vegas. So I've always been of the mindset that fantasy football is just way more fun when Justin Fields is a starter and someone that you could play. And so I really hope he ends up being a starter again. And to me, I just feel like Vegas is his best shot.
So I will throw this little wrinkle at you, Laquan, then, because stories kind of floating out there suggest that the Steelers want Justin Fields to be their starter next year. But, Russell Wilson is still at least a presence. I mean, he's also going to be a free agent this offseason. One or the other a better fit for the Steelers, or is there an option C in there maybe for Pittsburgh?
There could be an option C, and that option C could be neither one of these guys, because I think they saw what they got with both of them, and it wasn't exactly taking them over that hump. I mean, you have a great defense, but you still have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields that are just giving you kind of mid-tier quarterback play. So I think they need to hit it out of the park, in this draft, or try to make some moves in free agency to get a guy that can get in there and get things going. And maybe Aaron Rodgers. And I really feel as though that's their best bet to try to get over that hump. I'm being honest. I mean, if you want the circus, bring the circus to the circus. George Pickens, Aaron Rodgers, sign me up. I need it all. Like I'll do all that. But I think Russell Wilson, if we're going to touch on his best fit, I think the Vikings could be interesting. I think the Vikings, because he'll come in cheap, he'll be motivated, and that moonball to Justin Jefferson sounds like butter to me, like every Sunday. So I think they will be, at least somewhat interested into a cheaper option than Sam Darnold with a franchise tag that's $40 million. And it's like, whoa, yeah, that's kind of pricey for them to be going after Sam Darnold for it and not get a contract done. So I think Russell Wilson in Minnesota looks good too.
I would say this. You mentioned, bringing Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh, bring the circus. If there's one franchise that is not about the circus, it is probably the Pittsburgh Steelers. They just historically are not about that life.
I could see Mike Tomlin being like, I could control this circus though. You know the meme where it's like, it never works out for those people, but it might work for us.
Yeah, maybe. It just feels like, I don't know. I don't know if Mike Tomlin's already on the hot seat. Like, he is perpetually on the hot seat.
Which makes no sense.
I mean,
he's the only reason your team is good.
I just say to Steeler fans, just sort of be careful what you wish for, and I get it. I know the perception is that they only care about not having a losing record and this and that. Yeah. I just think if you're Steelers fans, just be careful what you wish for, because there's no guarantee you find someone who is Tomlin's equal or better
I could see if they were in like a Jeff Fisher situation where it's just mid, nothing else. Fire defense, mid. You're not in that boat. Like you have a coach that can motivate his players and listen to him when he speaks and go out there and execute on the field. That's very hard to come by for as many years he has done this with as many ages and young groups that come through there. Like he's able to contain the Tasmanian Devil and George Pickens. You put anybody else in that head coach seat, George Pickens is fighting on the sideline. He's fighting it in the stadium, in the stands. Like, I guarantee it.
He took a Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph-led team to the playoffs. Like,
yeah, right.
That alone, coach of the year. My idea with Russ was the Colts.
That's what I was going to say. Indianapolis.
Ooh. Why, though?
Just because I was thinking that they want someone to cover the bases for Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
And he is a vet who could teach Richardson.
Yeah.
I wouldn't love it because he could potentially steal the gig, but I think for real life purposes, they could see value there.
That would definitely hurt Anthony Richardson to the max, though. You bring in somebody like Russell Wilson. Like, I think he's coming in day one and probably steal the job.
He definitely could, which I would not want. Like, I wouldn't love this for fantasy at all, but I was just thinking like real life purposes. And for some reason, the Colts was a team I just was like, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I do. I think Russ for Indy makes, if they really are serious about having this quarterback competition, if they really are serious about trying to push Anthony Richardson, I think Russ is the guy. I think in terms of fantasy, I mean, Russ's value is probably done. And I don't really know how much he would elevate. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we get more out of Michael Pittman this year if that were to happen.
We need that desperately.
Josh Downs.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe that helps a little bit. I think Russ himself, though, is probably
Russ to Alec Pierce sounds good too, down deep.
That moonball would play.
I would not mind that.
Moonballs in the dome to Alec Pierce. Maybe not the worst thing.
We'll send it.
All right, so we already had Laquan sending Aaron Rodgers to Pittsburgh. Is there somewhere you would like to ship Aaron Rodgers, Florian?
Retirement home. Now, I really do think Pittsburgh makes the most sense if he's going to keep playing. And I do think he wants to keep playing, but I don't know. I think, though, that end of the season stretch he had, it's so Aaron Rodgers because you could just be like, well, I was coming back from an Achilles that takes time, even though he told us he was going to have the quickest recovery in medical history. But yeah, like I think he's going to look at those end of season games and be like, Devontae, come join me in Pittsburgh or somewhere. But he'll find a place to play. But Pittsburgh seems like one that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know anywhere. I guess Pittsburgh. There are a lot of places that I could see him going where they're just like, yeah, roll out the red carpet. Like, you're going to be our starter. You're going to be our QB1. Like, at this point, he's 41.
Send him to Cleveland.
I mean,
oh God.
Sure. I don't know that helps the situation there. I mean, they already have a whole lot of issues going on there, and like adding him to the mix just doesn't seem great. For pure comedy purposes, the Giants would be interesting.
He could stay right there in Jersey.
Stay right there. Wouldn't have to move.
He could be Tommy DeVito's backup.
Woo. Man, that was
The
a laser
shots
beam.
are firing.
That was a laser beam.
You don't know who Florio is, man.
Wow. Yeah, I don't see any easy answers with Aaron Rodgers unless he is somehow willing to sort of humble himself and allow himself to, compete.
You know who you're talking about, right?
To at least mentor.
Yeah.
Look, I'm just saying, to mentor somebody, compete, whatever it is. That's the only way I really see a good fit for him, and I just don't know that it happens. So
just go to Minnesota, man. Just follow the path.
Just follow the Favre path.
Yeah. Go to Minnesota, man.
If he signs in Minnesota, then Vikings fans should start printing Jordan Love jerseys today.
Oh my gosh.
Gosh. One other name I threw on here just for laughs. Daniel Jones. Is there a spot? Oh, Florio saying
Are you
Buffalo.
serious?
I would take him on the Bills in a heartbeat.
You know what? He could be Temu Josh Allen.
It makes total sense for him because like we saw Mitch Trubisky go and back up Allen for a year and then get paid because people would be like, maybe he learned through osmosis how to play like Josh Allen. But he would say what you will about Daniel Jones. I do think as a backup, he is one of the better backups.
Yes. No, I'd agree with that. I do think because you said Mitch Trubisky, and that was the name that popped into my head because he spent a year on the bench. He threw 8 whole passes. And afterwards, like all these teams are like, I can fix him. Like what happened? Like nothing happened. And somehow he was one of the most coveted free agents out there when he hit the market. But yeah, I don't think Daniel Jones in Buffalo as a backup would be the worst idea. You know, I mean, obviously, if you're a Bills fan, you don't want anything to happen to Josh Allen. But if something were to happen, you know, I think Jones can come in as a nice substitute. You know, he still has that mobility. Obviously, doesn't maybe have quite the arm strength that Allen does. But you know, I don't think you have to make wholesale changes to your offense either.
Yeah. Minnesota makes a lot of sense too.
No, bring him to LA. Come to the Rams. I mean, McVay's always wanted a mobile quarterback, I feel like. You know, he's always had that backup that has some type of legs. And we saw him run a QB option, a run option for Stafford in the playoff. Like, dude, don't ever do that again with Stafford. That's what he broke his rib. Like, don't ever do that again. Just wait.
But you guys have a great backup in
you will have Jimmy Garoppolo and you will like it.
Get him out of he needs to get his locker room back.
And you will like it.
No, what is he still doing in the building? Get him out of here.
Man,
he was once all MG had to hang his hopes and dreams on.
Bro.
Sorry, I'm just remembering him overthrowing Emmanuel Sanders in that Super Bowl.
The fact that you guys made it with Jimmy G, I don't think that team gets enough credit.
Throwing a pass with his eyes closed in like the biggest game of the year. That's great.
Like, he seems like a guy that fights with his eyes closed. If he's going to throw the ball downfield in the Super Bowl,
he's just a button masher when he plays video games.
Man,
a button masher.
Button mashing. All right, let's look at some tight ends. I put some names here, and you guys can tell me which of these guys, if any, is the most intriguing to you and where you might want to see them go. Tyler Conklin, Juwan Johnson, Gerald Everett, Zach Ertz, Mike Gesicki. There's a long list of tight ends. These were the ones that I thought were the most relevant. I mean, Florio, any of these names jump out to you?
No, this was a long list. Outside of Zach Ertz, who actually had a very good career, but it's just getting old now. This is a long list of tight ends that I have been suckered into in the past. Like, this guy's going to get an opportunity now. Watch out. And it never came to fruition. The one I guess I could get a little excited for is Juwan Johnson, because if he could get freed of, you know, the Saints tight end rotation and having to play with like Derek Carr and those quarterbacks that were backing him up, maybe. But yeah, I'm not like going to be pounding the table or drafting any of these guys. Like, they're more like maybe waiver wire guys or something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I have drafted or rostered every single one of these guys at some point.
You're just missing Irv Smith for me. I mean, that
I saw Irv on. He is on the list of free agents, but I had to long ago retire the let Irv swerve hashtag. At some point you just realize it's not going to happen. So you just have to sort of move on from it.
That sucks.
Yeah. The tight end position, the free agent tight end position is a bunch of guys who I think are sort of vying for backup status wherever they go. To your point, Florian, maybe Ertz still has something left. I'm starting to believe that this might be Ben Sinnott's year to take a step forward in Washington.
Pass the torch.
Pass the torch. So maybe it's Ben Sinnott in Washington, the rest of these guys sort of fighting for space.
If you thought Irv Smith was out of the NFL, you're pretty much right, because he had 0 targets last year.
How many routes on that? Jeez.
He played 5 games, apparently. 1 start, 0 targets.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it never really happened for him. He was always stuck behind somebody or he couldn't stay healthy. I really thought it was going to happen and it never happened. So it's unfortunate for sure for Irv Smith. So the scouting combine is over for another year. I guess we will see Indianapolis, at least combine wise, come next February. Chad Reuter, who does a lot of great work for NFL.com, he wrote a stock up, stock down piece. He wrote several of them, but specifically I'm looking at the one that involves quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Those are the guys who pretty much took part on the 3rd day of workouts at the Combine. A couple of names of note: Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden, and Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins all saw their stock go up per Chad Reuter. Stock down, Goes to Ohio State's quarterback Will Howard and Iowa running back Caleb Johnson. I don't think any of these names we mentioned last week when we talked about guys we were interested in. But Laquan, anybody that you saw or at least read about this weekend that has you changing your mind? Either somebody you're more in on or maybe you're more out on, or at least you want to take another look at?
A couple players, stock up, stock down. Stock down was definitely Caleb Johnson for me. Like before the combine, a little couple weeks ago, I kind of tweeted, I was like, man, he's going to need like a very good offensive line and a good scheme for him to actually be fantasy relevant and produce, because he did nothing at the combine that made him stand out. And I think that's kind of one of the issues. He's like a straight line runner. He's going to need like a Kyle Shanahan outside zone type of scheme for him to actually produce to be fantasy relevant. But the odds of that happening now, it's like he's going to fall into that day 2, day 3 type of ordeal. Like he's not even in my top 5 running backs anymore after this combine performance. It may be overreacting, but it just tells a little bit more of the story of what I saw, before the combine happened. Like he has no wiggle to his game. Like he's not like one of those like elusive running backs that we saw mostly out of this draft class. Guys that we didn't even really like touch on or speak about or know about that just shot up the ranks with their 40 time and their, agility and able to make their vertical jumps a lot higher, closer to 40 inches. It's like Caleb Johnson did nothing that was like exciting to me.
What if I told you the Niners were going to draft him? And I don't know this for a fact. I don't. But
I'm in.
But Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason are both free agents. I would be shocked if both of those guys come back. I know Isaac Guerendo is still there.
Yeah.
But, one, we always want 49er running backs, and the recent history of 49er running backs suggests that if you are upright and breathing, you're going to get some snaps at some point just because they tend to go through a lot of guys. So
their conditioning coach must hate them.
I mean,
like, you got to make me earn this paycheck.
I'm just sort of gaming this out right now, and it's certainly not impossible to think that the Niners could spend, maybe an early day 3 pick, depending on how this draft goes on Caleb Johnson.
Like if you want to go to sleep or put your child to sleep, just throw on his highlights, man. And not saying he's not going to be a good running back. There's nothing exciting about it. There's no juke move, like a stiff arm here and there. And Iowa's O-line was one of the best. So it's like he was a spoiled running back. He goes in that spoiled running back category that I have. Like there's nothing there that I saw that was like, oh my God, I need him on my team. Like if he goes to the 49ers, okay, top 5.
Which is sort of wild just because Iowa discovered offense this past year. I mean, they had been offensively challenged for a couple of years, but this past year they sort of rediscovered, forward progress with the football. So that sort of says something that Caleb Johnson was sort of your cure for insomnia. Florida, before the show, we were talking about Isaiah Bond. You said you had thoughts. I'm curious your thoughts.
I feel bad for him, man, because like he run like a 4.4, right? Like or 4.39. Like it was fast. Like he's a fast dude, but he went out and said I'm going to break the record, and now all we're talking about is how he didn't and how like how silly that looks and stuff. And it's like, dude, just under promise, over deliver. That's what if he came out and said, I'm worried about running a 4.6 and then he runs this exact score, we're like, dude, he's blazing. He's shooting up draft boards, all this stuff. But I thought it was interesting. So I ended up I heard an interview with the Iowa State receiver, Jalen Noel, who was the one I was going to say, I think really opened eyes a bit this weekend. He tested well. I went and I watched some of his tape after the combine, and I really like what I saw. Reminds me a little bit of Keon Coleman, not in how they play, but in the sense of like maybe not the best separator, but really good hands, really good ball skill, and really good after the catch capabilities. But he was talking about how he tested, because they all train for these tests. Yeah, he was during his training was testing better than he did at the combine, and he was like, yeah, it was definitely the turf was a little slick, like. Numerous dudes had to try on different cleats. Like he was like, I'm not making any excuses, but he kind of, without saying, it was like, I expect to test better at my pro day. So he's one that opened my eyes, but it also for someone like Bond makes me be like, let's see what he runs at his pro day and then judge, because that maybe there is something to this turf was just a little slick. I know they put in new pellets or something like that, and the people were saying it was just a little slipperier than normal.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting had Bond sort of lived up to it, because then we would have had Texas receivers go back to back with the top times in the 40. You know, with it having been Xavier Worthy last year. Obviously, that was not the case.
Bond wasn't even the fastest Texas receiver.
No, Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden, who was already, a very popular name. And I think, he just really sort of solidified that.
Yeah.
You think he's a top 3 receiver? Because it's starting to look that way.
I think so.
Top 3?
In this draft.
Yeah.
Yes, in this draft. Not overall.
Not for me.
Okay, so wait, who are your top 3 then?
So obviously T-Mac, Jaden Higgins, Emeka Ibuka, and then Matthew Golden at 4.
Okay.
Where are you on Luther Burden? Just curious.
He is probably 5 or 6. And okay. I say that because we've seen too many NFL teams of his type, his strengths, fail him. They failed that type of wide receiver. So it's like landing spots, like before I start going on campaigns of fade this guy, I need to see landing spots. Like that's how I'm going to play it this year.
I mean, that's kind of where I am most years. I admit, like, I was very much last year, like, I don't care where Marvin Harrison Jr. goes. It's going to be great.
I don't think there's like T-Mac, I think is like the consensus 1, but at best, I think he was 4th if he was in last season's class.
Yeah. That's probably fair.
I heard that.
That's probably fair.
Like he gets the 1 just based on it's like this class isn't strengths of like wide receiver 1s per se. Like I think this class is a bunch of wide receiver 2s staring up, posturing to be a wide receiver 1 with some development or situational volume.
Yeah.
We were spoiled last year.
We were definitely we've been spoiled the last several years. I mean, we are at a point where wide receivers, we're not hesitant, the guys at the top of the class to spend high fantasy draft picks on these guys.
Ryan Thomas Jr., perfect example. Sheesh.
Right. I mean,
shooting up ADP.
These guys are coming in more ready, more polished, more ready to go for the NFL right away. I mean, look, it wasn't that long ago when we talked about the 3rd-year breakout for wide receivers. And now, we're that meme with the guy, the stick poking, like, do something. Like their first year, like that's us now with rookie wide receivers. And if they don't pop in the first year, we're like, well, there's what's wrong? Like, so maybe we need to slow our roll a little bit.
I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. just gave us 808 touchdowns. We were like, failed season.
Yeah, right.
What's wrong with you? Like that was a quiet 8 touchdowns, though.
Really was.
It was a real quiet 8 touchdowns.
I think he had most of them against the Rams.
Yeah, I was about to say,
I think he had a couple against the 49ers too. So
all division touchdowns. Doesn't count.
Like I'm gonna sit this one out in terms of trying to laugh because I think he had a big game against San Francisco. Maybe not. He had one in week 18. Whatever. Anyway. There it is. That's our combine wrap up. We will obviously keep tabs on this and maybe get a little bit more as we get closer to the draft. We'll try to use some of the usual suspects, see if we can get Emory Hunt back in as we normally do, and see who else we might be able to get in. Maybe get our pal Bucky Brooks in here to talk some guys
Bucky.
as well too. We'll see how this works out. But in the meantime, we'll talk about some wide receivers and running backs for free agency. On Thursday, as we head into next week, actually, I guess we could probably even break it up. Play, let's see. Well, no, we'll do it on Thursday. Sorry, I'm producing the show out loud as we wrap things up. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about us. In the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast. Stay happy, safe, and healthy. Do good and live well. Enjoy your days, everybody. We will talk to you again on Thursday.